Throughout history, humanity has struggled with one universal problem: how to deal with those who drain us, deceive us, and poison our peace. We call them toxic people today, but Niccolò Machiavelli understood them long before we had a name for them. He saw them in politics, in power, in courts, and in the intimate circles of influence. And though his words were often ruthless, they were never without precision. Machiavelli believed that toxic people cannot be reasoned with, because they do not move according to reason. They move according to ambition, envy, or malice. If you want to survive them, and even thrive in their presence, you must understand them. You must understand that your kindness, your openness, your decency, these are not seen as virtues by a toxic person. They are seen as weaknesses. They are entry points for manipulation. And if you do not protect yourself with strategy, you will find yourself being drained, betrayed, and destroyed. Machiavelli would not have told you to avoid toxic people altogether. That is rarely possible. They are in families, workplaces, friendships, and communities. Instead, he would tell you to master cold laws, practical strategies that allow you to manage them without losing your strength. These are not moral lessons. They are laws of survival. And if you follow them, you will never again be easy prey. The first cold law: never confront directly when indirect force will do. Machiavelli observed that power is lost when one becomes too open in hostility. Toxic people feed on conflict. They want you to lose your composure, to expose your vulnerabilities. A direct battle often strengthens them because it gives them a stage. Instead, Machiavelli would say, act indirectly. If someone seeks to undermine you, don't waste energy shouting at them. Slowly, quietly, cut off their channels of influence. Deny them access. Outsmart them with subtle moves, not emotional outbursts. Like a strategist, you weaken them without them realizing until it's too late. The second cold law: control the narrative or they will control it for you. Toxic people thrive on gossip, distortion, and stories. They poison the perception of others. Machiavelli knew that reputation is more powerful than reality itself. If you allow a toxic person to paint your picture, they will paint you as the villain. So you must seize the narrative first. Speak calmly but firmly about your values, your actions, your intentions. Create clarity in the minds of others so that lies cannot take root. In silence, a toxic person controls the room. In clarity, they are exposed. The third cold law: keep them dependent or they will turn against you. Machiavelli famously warned that when people have nothing to gain from you, they turn into enemies. A toxic person will betray you the moment they feel they no longer need you. Therefore, the law is simple: keep them dependent. If you must deal with them, structure the relationship so they require your resources, your knowledge, or your approval. A toxic person who is dependent is manageable. A toxic person who feels free is dangerous. This is not about generosity, it is about leverage. The fourth cold law: never let them see your pain. Nothing excites a toxic person more than seeing their poison work. If they can disturb your peace, they feel powerful. Machiavelli insisted that appearances matter more than inner truth. You may feel frustration, anger, or sadness, but you must never let it show. Present yourself as untouchable. Your calmness disarms them. Your composure frustrates them. In time, they lose interest because they cannot extract the reaction they crave. To survive among snakes, one must learn the art of stillness. The fifth cold law: use division as a shield. A toxic person often builds influence by uniting others against you. Machiavelli would reverse this. Divide their alliances before they grow too strong. Subtly reveal their contradictions to others. Allow their manipulations to clash with the ambitions of those around them. Never fight them alone. Position them against forces larger than yourself. A toxic person is only powerful when united with others. Isolate them, and they collapse under the weight of their own venom. The sixth cold law: reward them strategically, not emotionally. Toxic people can rarely be ignored completely. Sometimes they must be managed like wild beasts, given just enough to stay calm, but never enough to grow bold. Machiavelli wrote that rulers reward not out of kindness, but out of calculation. If you must tolerate a toxic person, Give them attention only when it benefits you. Offer praise or resources not because they deserve it, but because it secures your position. This prevents them from turning their full hostility upon you. But never reward them too much, for they will grow ambitious and reckless. The seventh cold law: cut them off entirely when the time is right. The final law is the coldest, but also the most necessary. Machiavelli taught that mercy toward the corrupt eventually destroys the merciful. When you see that a toxic person has no capacity for change, and when their influence begins to outweigh their usefulness, the only option is removal. Not with drama, not with chaos, but with finality. You disappear from their life, or you strip them of power entirely. Toxicity grows only when it is tolerated. The strongest move is not anger, but silence and departure. Machiavelli never promised comfort. He promised survival. His laws are not meant to make you feel good. They are meant to keep you from being destroyed. In the world we live in, where toxic people thrive on manipulation, envy, and chaos, these laws are more relevant than ever. You must remember, toxic people do not play fair. They do not respect kindness. They do not honor loyalty. They respect only strength, strategy, and silence. And if you live by these cold laws, you will never again be their victim. Because in the end, Machiavelli's truth is not about cruelty. It is about clarity. To see people as they are, not as we wish them to be. To act with foresight, not naivety. To understand that some people are poison, and poison must not be swallowed. It must be contained, and when necessary, discarded. That is how you deal with toxic people. Not with warmth, not with negotiation, but with cold laws that protect your peace, your reputation, and your future. When Machiavelli spoke of men, he spoke with eyes unclouded by illusion. He stripped away the masks of virtue and revealed the hidden machinery of power. And if he were alive today, walking in our age of false friendships, shallow loyalties, and smiling betrayals, he would remind us of something chilling. The toxic person has always existed. Only the language changes. What we call toxic today, he might have called treacherous, deceitful, or corrupt. But the behavior is eternal. You must understand this. Toxic people are not accidents. They are not simply misunderstood souls who need your compassion. They are deliberate players in a game of domination. They thrive on destabilizing others, for in chaos they gain leverage. Machiavelli knew that order is the foundation of strength. And so when a toxic person enters your life, they are not merely an annoyance. They are a threat to your stability, your reputation, your control over yourself. He would never tell you to just ignore them. He would tell you to study them, to anticipate their moves, and to deal with them with surgical precision. Think of it this way: life is not a peaceful meadow, but a battlefield disguised in conversation, in friendships, in business meetings, even in families. Toxic people are like spies in this battlefield. They gather your weaknesses, they wait for your vulnerabilities, and then they strike. The worst mistake you can make is assuming they think as you do. You may value peace, they value disruption. You may value honesty, they value deception. You may value growth, they value control. In this war of values, your weapons cannot be kindness alone. They must be strategy. Machiavelli would warn you that toxic people are masters of masks. They rarely appear as villains at first. They present themselves as helpful, as charming, as loyal. They flatter you, they mimic your interests, they create a false sense of connection. But behind this mask is calculation. And here lies the first real insight. The more charming a toxic person appears in the beginning, the more careful you must be. Machiavelli noted that people reveal their nature not when they seek favor, but when they feel secure. A toxic person reveals themselves only when they think they have you trapped. By then, it may be too late, unless you have studied them carefully from the start. He would also remind you that pity is a dangerous weakness. Toxic people will exploit pity more than anything else. They will play the victim. They will spin stories of injustice. They will present themselves as wounded souls needing your help. But their wounds are not always real. They are tools. Tools to lure you into lowering your defenses. Machiavelli would say, feel pity privately, but never let it govern your actions. For when pity guides power, betrayal follows close behind. Consider also the matter of trust. Machiavelli believed that trust must never be given freely. It must be earned, tested, and continually reassessed. Toxic people demand trust quickly. They pressure you with lines such as, "Don't you believe me?" or "Why don't you trust me yet?" They use urgency to bypass judgment. But true loyalty, Machiavelli knew, reveals itself over time, especially in difficulty. The one who flatters you in prosperity but abandons you in adversity is not a friend. They are a parasite. Thus, the cold law emerges: do not rush to trust, and never trust fully those who stand to benefit from your downfall. Now let us turn to the idea of distance. Machiavelli believed that sometimes the greatest form of power lies not in confrontation, but in withdrawal. Toxic people are fueled by your energy, whether positive or negative. When you argue with them, you feed them. When you defend yourself endlessly, you feed them. But when you starve them of attention, their power diminishes. Distance is not weakness, it is control. To deny the toxic person, your reaction is to deny them their oxygen. And when they suffocate, they reveal their desperation. But distance alone is not always enough. There are moments when the toxic person wields influence that must be dismantled. Here, Machiavelli would apply the principle of division. The toxic thrive when united with others. They whisper in ears, they build alliances, they turn groups against individuals. The solution is subtle disruption. Encourage suspicion among them. Reveal small truths that expose their lies. Allow them to be seen for what they are, without you ever having to raise your voice. Divide their support, and their venom becomes impotent. Yet Machiavelli would also caution this: never underestimate a toxic person's patience. They can wait years to strike. They can wear the mask of loyalty until the exact moment of betrayal. Therefore, you must be equally patient in your watchfulness. To deal with them is not a short campaign, it is a long war of endurance. Do not expect them to suddenly change. Do not hope they will see reason. Instead, expect betrayal, prepare for it, and act as if it has already happened. That way, when the knife comes, it will never find your back unguarded. Ultimately, the greatest lesson Machiavelli would leave you with is this: do not approach toxic people as though you are negotiating with equals in morality. Approach them as predators, as rivals, as obstacles to your peace. In such a frame, every interaction becomes a test of power. If you are careless, they win. If you are strategic, you control the game. And in a world where reputation is life itself, controlling the game is everything. The toxic will always exist. You cannot purify the world of their presence, but you can purify your life of their influence. And you do this not by pleading with them, not by exposing your wounds, but by standing firm in cold laws of survival. Appear calm, move strategically, withdraw when needed, divide their alliances, cut them off when the time comes. This is not cruelty, it is clarity. It is the difference between the naive who are consumed and the wise who endure. And so, Machiavelli's message to you is simple, though merciless. If you do not master toxic people, they will master you. If you do not learn to see through their masks, you will forever be deceived. And if you do not act with cold resolve, you will find your life dictated by their chaos. But once you embrace these laws, once you accept that power must be defended, not hoped for, then you will move through the world untouchable. For toxic people do not vanish, but they cannot harm the one who has already prepared. The deeper we look into Machiavelli's writings, the clearer one truth becomes. Human nature does not change. The faces may differ, the fashions may evolve, the words may shift, but underneath the same hungers remain: envy, fear, greed, ambition. Toxic people are simply the most concentrated form of these hungers. They carry within them the same disease Machiavelli diagnosed in rulers, nobles, and schemers of his time. And just as kings were brought down by whispers in dark corridors, today a person can be ruined by the subtle poison of someone in their circle. The danger of toxic people is not that they are loud, but that they are quiet until it is too late. They operate not with swords, but with shadows. They do not attack directly. They erode little by little until one day you wake up weakened, doubting yourself, surrounded by their narrative instead of your own. Machiavelli would say, this is how empires fall, not through a single decisive battle, but through corrosion, through betrayal from within. In life, your peace, your reputation, your strength, these are your empires. And if you do not defend them with strategy, the toxic will occupy them without resistance. You see, the essence of power is control. Control over perception, over action, over reaction. Toxic people seek to rob you of this control. They want you reactive, emotional, impulsive. They want you speaking in defense rather than offense, running after their lies instead of directing your truth. Machiavelli would have told you never to give them this satisfaction. He would say, let your silence be louder than their noise. Let your composure be sharper than their chaos. For nothing enrages the toxic more than realizing they cannot dictate your state of mind. But silence, as powerful as it is, cannot be your only weapon. Machiavelli believed in the art of appearance. Appearances to him were not trivial. They were shields and swords. A toxic person may attempt to paint you as unstable, weak, or untrustworthy. If you allow their lies to stand, others will believe them. But if you construct your own image carefully, an image of calm authority, quiet confidence, and unshakable resolve, their words will collapse under the weight of your reputation. Remember this, when the toxic whispers, the world will always measure their words against your visible strength. If your strength is undeniable, their poison becomes laughter in the air. Still, Machiavelli would warn you never to underestimate desperation. A toxic person, when cornered, can become more dangerous than ever. They may pretend surrender, but their surrender is a mask. They may step back, but only to strike harder later. This is why he emphasized the importance of timing. You cannot act too early, for you reveal yourself before they reveal their true form. You cannot act too late, for then the damage is irreversible. The art is to strike when their mask begins to slip, when others begin to see their contradictions, when their influence weakens, when their hunger grows obvious. At that moment, your removal of them becomes natural, almost effortless. The world itself agrees with your decision. And here lies one of the coldest truths Machiavelli would offer. Toxic people often destroy themselves if given enough rope. They lie too often, and eventually the lies contradict each other. They betray too many times, and eventually no one trusts them. They overreach in their ambition, and eventually they fall. Your task is not always to fight them head-on, but to survive long enough to watch them implode. Survival, not confrontation, is sometimes the greatest victory. But there will be times when survival alone is not enough. There will be times when their poison threatens your very core, when their influence must be ended for good. Then Machiavelli's final lesson becomes unavoidable. Mercy is not always virtue. To continue giving chances to one who has proven themselves corrupt is not noble, it is foolish. Mercy given to the toxic is cruelty inflicted on yourself. There comes a moment when the only rational action is removal. Cut them off without apology, without guilt, without second chances. Not out of hate, but out of clarity. For a ruler who tolerates treachery is not compassionate, he is doomed. And a man or woman who tolerates toxicity will watch their life rot from within. What makes Machiavelli's wisdom so enduring is that it removes illusions. He does not tell us the world is fair. He does not tell us people will change if we love them enough. He tells us the raw truth. People will act in their self-interest, even at your expense. Some will use you, drain you, betray you. And if you refuse to see this, you are not virtuous, you are blind. Virtue without vision is destruction, but vision combined with strategy is invincibility. So what is the ultimate way to deal with toxic people? It is to transform your mindset from one of wishful thinking to one of strategic seeing. To stop asking, why are they like this? And start asking, what do I gain and what do I lose if I let them remain? To stop hoping for their loyalty and start calculating their usefulness. And to accept that in some cases, the greatest triumph is not winning them over, but walking away untouched. Life is short and energy is precious. To waste it on those who thrive on destruction is to betray yourself. Machiavelli would demand you be cold in your protection of your own strength. Cold not in cruelty, but in discipline. Cold not in hatred, but in clarity. And once you embrace this coldness, you become untouchable. The toxic cannot penetrate you because you no longer play by their rules. You have risen above their petty manipulations, their false kindness, their traps. You see them clearly, you act decisively, and you remain unshaken. And so, when you walk into the world, remember this. You are not obligated to be a victim. You are not required to carry their poison. You have the power to govern yourself, to set your boundaries, to withdraw your presence, to silence their noise. This is the real meaning of Machiavelli's cold laws. Not cruelty, but sovereignty. Not manipulation, but mastery. And in the end, mastery over yourself is the one thing no toxic person can ever steal.